Hello everyone, this is Miguel Contreras with Dominion West. We're being joined by Rafael Perez with iMortgage. Today we're going to talk about 203k financing, the ins and outs of it, and how to get it. Rafa, how are you today?
Doing good. How about yourself, Miguel?
Good, good. I'm really excited to speak with you today about 203k. I know that it's a big buzz in the community, out in the market, but a lot of realtors and consumers don't really know a lot about it. So I kind of want to do a one-on-one with you regarding 203k. First and foremost, what are the differences between 203k and regular FHA financing?
The main difference between a 203k and an FHA standard loan is the fact that the home can be purchased as is. So many times, for example, on a short sale, the seller doesn't really have the funds to make any FHA required repairs. This allows the buyer to actually finance that into the purchase for anything from paint and carpet all the way to room additions and foundations. So there's a lot of flexibility with the program to really take care of these repairs needed to make the home safe and habitable, as well as aesthetically pleasing in many cases.
Awesome. Now, a first-time buyer comes into your office, wants financing for FHA deal. They find a property that's somewhat in a fixer status. How do they initiate a 203k? What's the first step? If you can run us through A, B, and C steps as far as obtaining the financing initially.
Yeah, so basically it's still the same pre-approval process. They're going to fill out a loan application, and they're going to get approved for a certain loan amount as their max, and then they're obviously going to go out with their agent shopping to make sure that they find something that meets these parameters. Now, if they find a property, as you mentioned, that's a fixer, they actually need to finance some repairs to take care of the problem and to actually make the transaction work out. Then the next step is really to get a contractor out there to do a bid and add up the amount of work that's going to be done. In some cases, if it's smaller work and the buyer has some background in construction, they can do self-help on the streamlined 203k, which I can explain further a little bit later. But for the most part, they're going to want to budget and find out exactly what repairs are going to be done, how much it's going to cost, and kind of set a wish list per se of what they want to get done. So that's the first step. The next step obviously is once the deal has been structured, you kind of have a target purchase price, and you actually decide to move forward with it with your contractor budget and your contract. The next step obviously is going through the regular loan process. Where that varies from a traditional FHA loan is the fact that obviously when it gets through underwriting, the contractor bid is going to be matched up with the appraisal if it's a streamline, or on a full 203k, the HUD consultant's requirement of repairs, and it'll be compared with the wish list to make sure that all the HUD standard repairs are met with the contractor's bid.
Okay. Now I know there's a lot of misinformation out there in reference to repairs. The question that I get out there when I'm out in the market when it comes to 203k financing is, do the repairs need to be done within the time frame of escrow, or can they be done outside of escrow once escrow is closed?
Yeah, no, actually repairs cannot begin until after escrow is closed. So as far as the seller or the listing agent is concerned, there's absolutely no repairs required until after the close of escrow. Once escrow closes, then the repairs begin, and that's something that the buyer deals with their contractor and the loan servicer to make sure that is completed. But as far as the seller or listing agent is concerned, yeah, none of the repairs are done during escrow unless agreed upon for the seller that they're going to pay for it. Otherwise, it's all done after the close.
Okay. Now, is there a time period? Is there a maximum time allowed after escrow is closed so that the repairs get done from day one at close of escrow to X date?
Yeah, it really depends on the type of 203k. There's two types of 203ks. There's a streamline, which is up to 35,000, mostly cosmetic repairs, and that's the most popular one. Most people don't need over 35,000 in repairs, and it's they prefer the more streamlined process. On a streamlined 203k, they're really going to want to start within 30 days of closing escrow, and they're going to want to complete the work within 6 months. Once again, as it's a streamline, it's mostly cosmetic. A lot of times the work can be done within those first 30 days and completed right away, so it's usually not an issue.
Perfect. Now, when a realtor goes into a deal structuring the offer for the buyer, how should that offer be structured? What terms should be included within the residential purchase agreement?
Typically when an offer is submitted for a 203k, it's submitted just like any other FHA loan. You're going to still have your normal purchase price. You're going to have, your normal down payment and your loan amount. Where the 203k differs is obviously on a 203k, the down payment is based on purchase price plus repairs, and on a streamline, a 10% contingency reserve of the repair amount. So let's say you have a 200,000 purchase price and 10,000 in repairs. You're going to have another 1,000 for reserves. So now you're up to 211. Your down payment is actually based on the acquisition price, which is price, repairs, contingency. So that's one place where it'll differ, because the down payment is not based on the purchase price. Another place where it'll differ is the loan amount. But it's, as far as an agent writing an offer is concerned, as long as you have a 203k pre-approval from your lender, all those numbers are going to be on the pre-approval letter already. So it's just a matter of copying the numbers from the pre-approval onto the offer. It's actually really as easy as writing a regular FHA offer. You may want to write in the additional comment section that it is 203k rehab financing, just to clarify to the seller why the loan amount and down payment vary from a regular FHA loan.
Perfect. Now, obviously in 2011, we're still in an REO world. A lot of the properties are in disrepair. They may have some major issues. What's a good way to turn an asset manager or convince them to be on our side to actually accept a 203k loan opposed to, say, a cash offer, particularly with the property they may have, say for instance, a cracked slab, etc.
Yeah, the best thing to do is to have a team together. Obviously, if the realtor, the lender, and the contractor are all working in unison, and you can show to the asset manager that you've already done your due diligence, you've already had a contractor out there, you already have the numbers, the DU approval from the lender actually reflects the fact that it's a 203k loan, and you can show some references from other past projects and listing agents that the lender has funded, so that the asset manager knows that it's not their first 203k. All these things combined, communicated in a well-written cover letter, or even an email from the lender that the agent can forward, all communicates to the asset manager, okay, this team knows what they're doing. It's going to be a lot easier to get something like that looked at, as opposed to somebody saying, well, I think we're going to use a 203k, let me call my lender and figure it out. And obviously being on track, having everything, all your ducks in a row, and being prepared is the best way to really approach an asset manager.
So what I gather from that the best practice to convince an asset manager to accept a 203k loan offer would be one, to have a cover letter from a loan professional like yourself who knows 203k really well, to have a bid already, correct?
Yes.
And the desktop underwriting approval, the DU approval.
Yes. No, like I said, having all your ducks in a row, knowing what you're doing in advance, and then having everything already structured, packaged, and just ready to go is going to go a lot further than doing it the other way around, coming at the asset manager saying, this is what we plan to do, we'll get back to you when we figure it out. Obviously they don't have time to be wasting time. Is money for them, and if you can show that it's not going to cause any additional delays to go with this alternate type of financing, they're going to feel a lot more confident moving forward with that offer.
Perfect. Now, one of the questions that a lot of my buyers ask me when it comes to 203k financing is, when do I get the money? How does a contractor get paid? Do I pay them in escrow? Do I pay them outside of escrow? Do I get a lump sum, then I cut the check? How does that work?
Yeah, so as far as the funds for the repairs go, once again, it varies from the two different kinds of 203ks. As far as the streamlined 203k goes, let's say there's $20,000 budgeted for repairs. Half of that can be dispersed at the close of escrow to the contractor, countersigned by the buyer. So they'll get a check, the buyer signs off on it, contractor signs off on it, and contractor gets half of that money up front. The rest of the funds will then be dispersed once the project is complete. So the contractor knows that they're going to get some money to start the project, and once the project is complete, then the servicing bank will receive the documents stating that the project's been complete. The contractor will certify that they've completed the job, and then one of two things will happen. Either the bank will then release the second portion of the funds, or at their discretion, they could send the appraiser back out there to certify that the work has been completed. Once that's done, then the contractor will receive the rest of the funds.
Excellent. And I know my buyers are going to ask, do I have to take care of providing the bank all of that, all that documentation to prove that the work's been completed, or does the bank send someone out there, or does the contractor actually do the work?
It's actually a combination of the three things. Upon completing and funding a 203k, the buyer actually receives a contract and some documents, as well as the contractor. Once the work is complete, then you basically sign the form certifying that you know that the work is done, obviously per the bid. The contractor signs off on it, and then the borrower would just send it into the servicer so that they can start that process to get the funds returned. Now, obviously, if you have a contractor that's familiar with 203Ks, or they've been briefed prior to starting the project, it's going to go a lot smoother and be a lot easier for them to complete the project.
Perfect. So it's important for a buyer to team up with a team of professionals that know exactly what they're doing.
Definitely.
Great. Well, Rafael, thank you so much for the information. I'm sure it's going to prove very valuable to a lot of consumers out there in 2011 as we run into a lot of rehab properties, or properties that are in need of rehab. Where can people find you? What's your contact information?
Once again, I work for iMortgage. My direct line is 619-928-0128, or I can be reached by email at rafael@thehomemap.com. Once again, it's not your typical financing program, so you definitely want to work with somebody, no matter where in the country you are, that has experience with these types of loans. And more importantly, you want to make sure that there's a team in place that understands the dynamics of this program and what's going on. And the best way to understand that is, by interviewing whatever loan professional, whatever real estate professional you're working with, to make sure they know what they're talking about. Because obviously, when you're doing something out of the box, you want to make sure that they've worked out of the box before.
Perfect. And what's your website again, Rafael?
You can see my blog at thehomemap.com, and there's some videos on there about the 203k as well as other financing things. Perfect.
Well, once again, Rafael, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm Miguel Contreras with Dominion West Properties. You can reach me at www.miguelsells.com. Thanks.
All right, thanks for having me, Miguel.